Oh, hello. Here. How good's Predator? Fine, you twisted my arm. Let's talk about Predator. My favourite film. But I'm going to take you back to about 95, 96, when I was just a wee bear. And I'm going to tell you a story. So I had this pal, which I can't remember his name, but I used to go to his house to watch films back on the VHS days. Remember those days? Well, some people might not actually remember those days. Man, I'm getting old. Anyway, we'd go up there because his mum would let him watch films that were a wee bit too old for him. When I say a wee bit, she would let him watch 18s. So I went up and we watched Predator 2. And I won't lie, it scared the bejeebus out of me. To the point that I was having nightmares for about a week of this big dreadlocked alien pulling my spine out and skinning me alive. I was only 6 at the time, remember. Wee bit later, we went back up, and this time it was to watch Halloween. I don't know if this guy was as much of a friend as I thought he was, because every time I left his place, I always ended up terrified. Anyway, Halloween gave me the fear something worse than I've ever felt before. It's probably the reason why I don't like horror films, actually. But this leads up to why I love Predator. We're getting there. The nightmare that I would have would be me standing on an American street and I look over and Mike Myers just pops up. So I try and run away. But the usual horror magic kicked in of Mike Myers not walking very fast, but always catching me. So I nearly get away. I get to a corner. I'm about to turn the corner. I'm about to escape. And a bus shows up, blocking my path. As Michael's about to deal the killing blow, 3 red dots appear on his stupid face. And boom, no more Michael Myers. I look up and I see my saviour, the main man himself, Predator. Oh yeah, then years later I actually watched Predator and loved it. Maybe I should have opened with that. Predator is directed by John McTiernan, and it is your basic action military film. Dutch, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and his crew are called in to rescue a cabinet minister who have been captured by guerrillas. Quick side note, when I first watched this when I was younger, I was actually really confused at why guerrillas would capture cabinet ministers. Then even more confused when there was no guerrillas in this film. Years later, I found out what a guerrilla was. In military standpoints, I know what a guerrilla is. Still kinda disappointed that there was no guerrillas in this. Man, I do love gorillas. Dutch's team is also paired up with a CIA guy, Dylan, played by Carl Weathers. Kinda get they're gonna get screwed over now, don't you? Because when have you ever seen a film where the CIA were involved, where they didn't screw over someone? The team go looking for the cabinet minister, and they track them down to a guerrilla encampment in the jungle. And they do what every good action star does. They blow up the whole camp of guerrillas. I am not salted about the fact that there's no guerrillas in this film. Moving on. Once the attack is done, we get to see this really eerie infrared. And this is to show us that the Predator has arrived. Man, I actually hate saying the Predator to describe Predator because of that god-awful film. Also, if you're going to make a sequel, don't put the in front of it as your sequel. Like we had Fast and Furious, and then we had The Fast and The Furious. We had Predator and The Predator. It's just confusing for no reason. Where was I? Oh yeah, then Predator shows up, and this is when the film changes into more of an action horror as the Predator starts hunting down Arnie's crew, and they have to do their damnedest to figure out how to beat an invisible monster. Before we move on, Shane Black's in this film, and honestly his biggest contributions to this film are these 2 jokes.
The other day I went up to my girlfriend. I said, you know, I'd like a little pussy. She said, me too. Mine's as big as a house. Today, I was going down to my girlfriend. I said to her, Jeez, you got a big pussy. Jeez, you got a big pussy. She said, why did you say that twice? And I said, I didn't. See, it's because of the echo.
Man, imagine if they made a whole film based around that kind of humour. That would be really crap, right? First and foremost, Predator is a popcorn action film. From the fact that all the characters are over the top and they all look like how I would design a character in a game. They blow up everything when they reach the guerrilla camp in the jungle. Oh, on the notes of jungles, this film was actually filmed in the jungle. That's why it looks so real. There's no green screen jungle here. There's no studio with, 10 feet of jungle and then the rest is just whatever they put in the background. They're in the jungle and it looks great for it. There's something to be said about having your action set in the place that you want it to be set instead of trying to recreate that place. Because the guys actually look genuinely fucked as they're walking through the jungle. When they're sweaty from doing manly jungle activities, they look like they went through the ringer, and it gives more credibility to what they're doing. It's actually really cool to see. The fight in the camp is pure late 80s, and the reason I say late 80s is this is when studios were kind of throwing money at action and practical effects. I have never seen so much fire and real explosions in such a small area, and I do mean everything actually explodes. We have grenades that are the equivalent of nukes going off every 2 seconds, considering this was meant to be a covert operation.
Simple setup. 1-day operation. We pick up their trailer at the chopper, run them down, grab those hostages, and bounce back across the border before anybody knows we were there.
But in this fight, we get to meet someone beautiful. Oh, painless. The minigun. Which I'm sure is the first ever handheld minigun on screen. Ever. Carried by Blaine, played by Jesse, the body Ventura. Predator facts. This film goes on to create 2 political figures actually. Jesse and Arnie. Both of them become governors. The action is actually toned down quite a bit for when we get to the second half of the film because we're getting introduced to the Predator, who hunts in a different way. He's a hit and run. I'm going to get in, kill you and get out. I'm going to do it without you noticing. This juxtaposition is really nice because now we start moving away from this over-the-top action film to this more suspense-driven kind of horror film. It makes our main characters start to feel weak in comparison to Predator because he's picking them off as if they're not really a factor. They're not a challenge to him yet. I was going to talk about the gore before we moved on, but the gore in this film is so good that I think YouTube might stop it going up. So take my word for it, the gore is brilliant. Let's talk about the actual Predator, shall we? My favourite movie monster of all time, played by the legendary Kevin Peter Hall. Kevin plays him so well because he makes him feel alien. Yes, Predator might be humanoid, but it moves very unhuman. It takes off its mask in a way that's sinister and not of this world. The way he moves with malice, and that's what we want in an alien. We don't want it to feel human. It's beautifully done, and nobody's been able to capture it since. Predator facts. Did you know Predator was actually meant to look like this? And it was actually meant to be played by him, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Thank heavens we never got that, because this would have been a way different movie. The idea of Predator is so simple as well. Alien hunter that needs to hunt something that's challenging. When it comes to Earth, it hunts humans, because we are the most challenging creature here for it to fight. It's one of those premises that makes you go, man, why didn't I think of that first? And I do love the fact that Predator will see a challenge and make it more tricky for himself. So the big fight at the end is between Predator and Dutch, but because he sees Dutch as a true challenge, instead of just killing him with his amazing equipment, mask comes off, the laser cannon comes off, and he fights Dutch hand to hand because he's got an honour system of, well, you're good enough to come at me, let's go for it. And he manhandles Dutch something awful. It's great. One of the best parts of the Predator is the fact that he stalks his prey. He is a true hunter. And the film actually does a good job of showing this because we never get to see him. Think about films and when you get to see the bad guy early, kind of loses the magic, especially something that's meant to be otherworldly or paranormal. You're not meant to know what it is. That's where your fear comes in. That's where your imagination kicks in. So when we do get to see Predator, it's snippets of him. We get a second here, a second there. But most of the time, we only ever see him as a heat haze. And it's great because you do feel this sense of dread of this invisible monster coming to kill you. Something else I want to bring up about his vision, because I think his vision's really cool. And they kind of missed a trick in later films. So the Predator vision, because it was made in 1987, is really tricky to actually pull off. It's an infrared, but you can still see everything. So it's done practical as much as possible. It's kind of blurry, slightly out of focus. You can tell a person from the background, but you can't tell who's who. And I kind of like that because it makes us feel like nothing but prey. We are not unique to them. We are just something to hunt. When the newer films, when they get a bit better with technology and we get to see it a lot more, they'll lose that kind of feeling of prey because we get to actually see every individual character even in their infrared form. The moment where we get to actually see the Predator, because we've spent roughly an hour and 20 minutes waiting for him, is so iconic and brilliant because it's like watching Godzilla coming out of the ocean for the first time. You know there's something menacing coming, don't know what it is, and then when we do get to see it, oh my god, what a cool design. But unlike most kind of slasher villains, that's kind of what he is. He moves with purpose. He doesn't meander. He doesn't have that eerie, I go really slow but I'll always catch you. No, this guy looks like he's coming to kill you, and it's great. The overall look of it is so unique for a movie monster, because instead of trying to make something that's just scary, they made something imposing. He looks more like a warrior than a horror villain, and this is all thanks to Stan Winston Studios. Bit of backstory on that. After the original Predator design got scrapped, they needed to get someone new in to design Predator, and they went to Stan Winston on the recommendation of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You're probably wondering why we brought you here today. Basically, what we're doing is making monsters. That's what we do, and we do it well.
Stan Winston is a legend in the world of monster making. He worked on The Terminator. Pretty sure he worked on Alien, I'd have to look it up. But he worked on so many monsters in so many movies. Guy knows what he's doing. And he really took that crappy Predator design and turned it into something that's iconic. Silhouette will always be known now. Predator will always be in the sphere of being known as one of the greatest looking movie monsters ever. Oh, I never talked about the fact that he takes his mask off and we get to see his face. And my god, it's the most ugly, beautifully done face that I have seen. Like, the mandibles move, and he's just got this glisten of something that's slightly lizard-like. Oh, it's so good. And we get one of the best lines in the whole bloody movie.
You one ugly motherfucker.
Man, I really do miss practical effects. I actually adore this film, and I was lucky enough to see it in the cinema. Witcher 3 were running a competition about which is the best hunting film of all time, and Predator won, obviously. And that was one of my best cinema experiences as well, so it just adds to my love of the film, and also adds to why I love the cinema. It's like getting to see these stories that are way beyond the realms of normality, with these characters that are way beyond the realms of ordinary people living on the screen. It's just why I love the cinema. It's like, that's the way you're meant to see it. You're meant to see it in these grand picture halls. Predator isn't a perfect film. I know this. I'm not that rose-tinted that I don't know its faults. But it has one of my favourite Arnie performances, because it's one of his more toned down and subtle performances. We have a villain that actually feels like he's a genuine threat to the heroes. Whereas most action films, the villain doesn't feel like a threat. It's a film that makes me smile. It's a film that I can quote on a daily. It's a film that I can segue into things constantly. And I'm so emotionally tied to it that I can't help but love it, even to this day. Predator facts. Billy, played by Sonny Lundham, had a bodyguard, not to protect him from others, but to protect others from him. Jesse Ventura was also a Navy SEAL. Arnie got Carl Weathers into smoking cigars. This is Kevin Peter Hall. They felt so bad that he was in that suit for so long in the filming of this, they put his face on the screen. Stan Winston came up with the mandible design because James Cameron suggested it to him on a plane to Japan. Bet you didn't think you were going to learn so much about the Predator today. Thanks as always for watching. Till next time.